Hi, this is Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about language independence and worldwide accessibility. Something that I tried to think about when I ran Kickstarter campaigns was how can I make this accessible to as many potential backers as possible, not just English speakers, not just people in the US. And as a result, what ended up happening is I would have about 50% of backers that were from the US and then 50% from all around the world. Now, part of that was shipping. I talked about shipping in a previous video. Shipping and fulfillment, if you can make that friendly to backers worldwide, then you significantly increase your potential audience. But another part is language. Not everyone speaks English fluently, or even if they do, even if they are comfortable with English, they might prefer their local language version of the game. So there are a few different approaches you can take to helping reach out to those types of backers. The first is to make your game language independent. What this means is that all of the components except for the rulebook itself in the game are language free. And so it just uses symbols and icons and pictures to convey what you're trying to express to the gamer. This can be great. It can be easy to see icons and symbols from across the board, just from a playability perspective. But it can also isolate people who maybe get tired of constantly looking in the rulebook to see what those symbols mean. So you kind of have to strike a good balance there. The second approach that you can take, sometimes in combination with that first one, is to get volunteer translations of your rulebook and of your game. So this is something, if you do have people who are passionate about your project, either before or during the project, you could ask them or pay them a small amount or compensate them with a copy of the game to translate the rulebook into a different language. This can be really appealing for backers who arrive at your project page and see that you've not only taken the effort to put the English rulebook up there, but also to have the Italian rulebook and the German rulebook and the French rulebook. That can be really helpful, even if they're just making a backer decision at that moment. The last option is localization. You can partner with publishers around the world to have your game published in a local language, in German and French and Italian and Japanese, many other languages. This can be a huge asset for a game and especially the long-term visibility of a game, the breadth of the game, the breadth of the game's audience. But the downside is if you try to pair printings of games together, English with those other languages for economies of scale, you can often be caught like waiting for all these localization partners to be ready with their translations, whereas you're ready to go to print with the English version. So you kind of have to decide, how do I want this to impact the schedule of the project, especially if you have backers waiting to get their copy of the game. You may want to just proceed with the English printing and then a few months later proceed with the international, the localized versions. Also, one thing to keep in mind, something that I learned, is that localization partners actually prefer that the game isn't language independent because it means that the marketability of their language dependent version of the game is much higher, since someone can't just go and buy the English version of the game with all the symbols and icons and download the rulebook in a different language. So that can be something to think about as well. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to visit my Kickstarter Lessons blog and we can talk about this more in detail. Thanks.